It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Harold Tzvi Levine. We're here in your beautiful apartment in Jerusalem, and Dr. Levine. And Dr. Levine, you actually volunteered to come to fight in, or to be a dentist in the new state of Israel during the war.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your family background, where you were born?
Billy, Chucky, Phil didn't tell you anything? Yeah, I'll tell you, my interest was very easy to come by.
What year were you born in? When were you born?
1925.
In New York?
Yeah.
And you grew up in Brooklyn?
I grew up in Brooklyn. In Flatbush and in Borough Park.
And your parents, where did your parents come from?
Someplace in Europe, I don't know exactly where. Let me start at the beginning. Get that, see that book, that album underneath? Yeah, it's the one.
Oh, this is wonderful. I'll pick this up. Oh, you have...
This is my father and his brothers.
If I could just have a... What was your father's name?
Samuel.
And this picture, I'm sure it was taken in Europe?
No, it was taken in the States.
In the States. So where's your father in the picture?
Samuel.
So they Baruch Hashem, they managed to get to America.
My father was bar mitzvah on the boat coming over. And all of these pictures were taken in Stamford, Connecticut. The oldest brother, Barney, was the one who came. And then other members of the family came on immigration. One of the sons died on the boat. He's not listed here. And we were 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 6 brothers. The one who's died is this is the 6th. The one who's died is not here. Obviously, he died on the boat. He was a dentist in Stamford, Connecticut.
Wow.
This one, when he grew up. My father came in about someplace between 19, it had to be, anyway, when he came, it was in the early 1900s. And he spent a couple of years here, did very well in elementary school and high school. And then he was accepted for, you're not familiar with the States, but there's a very well-known, the name slipped my mind now. It was no tuition, but you had to very good scholarship ratings. So he was accepted there for architecture. He wanted to get married, so he looked around, and Stamford, Connecticut was not a Jewish town, but not a very religious town. So he met my mother, who was the oldest one of 10, living in Borough Park. My grandfather was a Talmudic scholar, but he was in business, and a successful business. So he raised, I'll show you see in the picture.
You came from a very religious family.
What's that?
It was a very religious family.
Yeah, modern religion, not modern Orthodox. All of, now here, this is my mother's father, Talmudic scholar, a businessman, and he was very successful, so he bought a couple of buildings in Borough Park, rented it out, and he had a bunch of daughters, as you can see. And this one never got married. This one got married late, never got married, married late. And this is my father, mother, grandfather, grandmother.
Here's your father on this picture over here.
Is my father.
And who's in these two pictures?
Well, I'm sorry, what?
Who's in this picture? This is...
No, he died earlier. I don't remember him alive. I was born in 1925. My grandfather that died when I was in dental school he died in 1950.
Well, and here's you with your brother.
Yeah. Mother.
And your mother and father.
Yeah. So this is almost a total family. My mother was here, my brother, myself, Mongoloid, husband to this one, second one, Miriam. He was an architect. He was what's it called? He was a mathematical expert. He was in the U.S. Navy in the 1940s. And here, an aunt, my father.
And your mother. Amazing.
Anyway, my father was a kid, and it was just before he went to architecture school. He got a call from British, whatever organization he was in, and he was motivated. He went to he was in the Jewish Legion.
And he volunteered?
Yeah, in 1948, 1920, yeah.
Actually, can I ask you, in this picture, who is in this picture over here?
Say that again.
Who is in this picture of the Levine family?
Aunt Adele married Harry. I forget her name. Married Joe. Can't get his name. Here's my father. Bonnie, the oldest. Joe. Louis. And they did all the wives.
Wow. And here's you with your brother and your parents.
My father with his family, with his siblings.
And at the bottom
is yeah. This remember that this was long before your time.
that was the Panama hats.
Yeah.
And which beach did you go to?
Seacliff.
Seacliff, wow.
Seacliff. Coney Island.
And these pictures?
Yeah, this is my father. In the British Army. Sergeant Major.
So they must have been in the First World War.
In the First World War,
Yeah.
right?
He joined the British.
Here's another picture.
It was very unusual for somebody living in America to join the British Army.
Yeah. He was a volunteer. He started, was taken to Canada to get basic training. Then he went to Europe, to England, and then he went to Egypt.
And why did he volunteer?
Why did you volunteer?
But he wanted to learn how to fight.
My brother volunteered, I volunteered.
It's amazing. But to volunteer for the British Army in the First World War,
What's that?
it was very unusual that
Yeah.
people who weren't living in it was British control, were Palestine at that time, Eretz Israel, but it's
My father was very committed. After that, when he came back, he wanted a Jewish, an Orthodox girl, and so he picked the Shochet's daughter from. He was a Shochet's son in Stanford, and he married her and Shotgun, I don't know who put them together, but he came all the way from Stanford, Connecticut to Borough Park. And
they got married in New York.
yeah.
And growing up, did you grow up in a very frum family, in a frum household?
Yeah, frum, but not crazy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we were very I went to a yeshiva elementary school, yeshiva Borough Park, the Hebrew Institute of Borough Park, and it was from elementary school to 1 year of high school. And then I went into a public high school, and then I went to City College, and then
Harold, can I ask, growing up, did you ever experience any anti-Semitism or any anti-Jewish feeling growing up in New York?
my father was an architect, and in 1928, there was a crash. So he was stuck with one of the houses that he designed. It was in Seacliff. You heard of Glen Cove?
Yeah.
It's a little town, very large. And so they lived there for, I think, 2 or 3 years until he was able to to sell the house. And I remember growing up, I don't know, a thunderstorm, and that stopped, and there was a smell of the air, and I went out, and I saw one of my playmates lying, surrounded by potent electric lines. He was electrocuted. So I went back home, but I was tied up by kids. I don't remember too much about it, and you know, like an anti-Semitic that's how you describe it. And the juvenile anti-Semitic tied me up.
Really?
Yeah.
And that boy that was electrocuted, was it by accident or?
I don't know. I don't remember it other than, I mean, I'm mentioning it to you, and I've mentioned it. It's one of the things that you remember about early childhood. So I remember the smell, and I remember being tied up. But besides that, it was a very nice place.
And did you used to go to shul on all the Chagim and on Shabbat?
I was too young then. I mean, we're talking about up to the age of 5 or 6. And then things got bad for my father in the architecture business. He left architecture without owing any money. The ones who owed money and went bankrupt later on became very wealthy. Trump's family were among the successful residue of the breakdown of society. Interesting.
And when you went to yeshiva,
yeah,
did you have nice rabbonim? Were the rabbonim very? Could you connect with the rabbonim? Were they very approachable? Or?
Not really. Some of them were religious, and some of them were secular. You know, it was a job. The ones in the Hebrew, the morning, were religious.
Mm-hmm.
But they were odd people. I mean, we had one teacher, Silver, who smoked. And smoked a pipe constantly. He went out for a recess, and kids were wild. We put thumbtacks on the seat so you could sit on it. You know, it was a very mischievous bunch.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when did you decide to do dentistry?
I was accepted for medical school, but for a year later then I was accepted for dental school. And I went to dental school because the people who were starting later were being drafted for the Korean War.
Oh, this was even after the
Second World War.
So I would like to ask you, Harold, during the Shoah, the Second World War, what do you remember? Do you remember anything about the Holocaust or what was going on in Europe?
Very little. There was very little knowledge. Communications were not what they are
today. But the New York Times did not...
We didn't know. There was Stephen Weiss and there was Abba Hillel Silver, but we didn't know about in Morgenthau in the government, but we didn't know what was happening.
And did your family used to get the New York Times?
The New York Times was an anti-Semitic paper.
It was Jewish owned, but they never published anything about what was going on.
I don't remember anything. We didn't. I didn't read the New York Times.
They actually apologized many years later for having suppressed. Wow. So growing up during that period, you never knew what was happening in Europe?
No. How old are you?
62. Yeah. I know, but it's...
You're 2 generations behind me.
And what happened when you found out, when the war ended and the news filtered through?
Well, I have one friend who was went as a volunteer to take care of young people who were rescued from the concentration camp. His name is Ted Comet, and he's about a half year older than I. And so he went to Europe, and he was a counselor in one of these camps. He became very friendly with a very big scholar. I'm trying to think of his name. Died a few years ago. A Holocaust scholar. Yeah.
Elie Wiesel? Elie Wiesel?
Yeah. Yeah, Elie Wiesel. He was friendly with Elie Wiesel. He gave a number of speeches over the years. And his wife was a Holocaust victim as well.
Wow. And did you have any family that was in Europe, or
No.
Most of your family had already come to America?
Yeah. The ones that were left in Europe we didn't even know existed.
And when the survivors started coming to America after the war, did you meet any survivors, or?
Yeah. I went out with, I was dating at that period of time, so I went out with a bunch of different girls. Some of them came from Holocaust families, but we never discussed the Holocaust.
It just
No.
wasn't a topic to discuss.
No.
It was too fresh and too difficult.
Look, my parents didn't have pleasant memories. I mean, you don't leave a country across half the world and do it because you're
That's true.
a successful member of society.
Sure.
Right?
Well, it's true. Yeah. But how was your reaction when you actually found out what had happened in Europe? It must have been devastating.
Well, it motivated my brother, it motivated me.
That was one of the motivations.
Look, the fact that my father was looking for the development of a Jewish state and participating in it, and a very young guy, and I mean, it was very deep feeling. My father was president of the Mizrahi in Borough Park for about 30, 40 years.
So you grew up in a very Zionistic family.
Yeah. My grandparents are buried in the States. My wife's grandparents are buried in Har Zeitim. My wife's wife's parents are buried in in Bet Shemesh. My wife is buried in Bet Shemesh. In 19, what year it was 6 years ago when my wife died. So I was in the States. My brother called me up and said, where should I bury Dad? Where should I bury my grandfather, my father? And I told him, well, he wanted, on the way to the hospital, he said, take care of Mom and bury me in Eretz Yisrael if I die.
Sure. That's amazing.
So he was, so he died over Sukkot, and I called up Israel, and they bought 10 graves in Eretz Chaim. And when my wife's family heard about it, he had some graves in Eretz in Zaytim.
How is Zaytim, the Mount of Olives?
He bought 30 graves in Eretz in Bet Shemesh, and my two sons live here. My daughter just bought an apartment here.
Wonderful.
And he was here a couple of weeks ago. He said, by the way, I want you to know that I just bought 6 more plots.
Sure. Wow.
Now my wife and her 4 siblings are buried in Eretz Chaim.
And Harold, can I ask, what made you decide to go in the medical field, to do medicine and then to change to dentistry?
Well, I was going to go into medicine, but I was accepted for dentistry a year earlier. So I took that.
And at which university were you at college?
It was the Medical College of Virginia. It was a 3-year program at that time during the war. They hurried everything up, and you were exempt from the army while you were in service. So I started dental school in 1942, and then a couple of years later, the war ended, and I just finished the first year and a half of dental school. And in the school, they decided to revert to the 4-year program. So I would have lost an extra half year staying in Richmond, Virginia, which wasn't a place I wanted to be to, even though it's very nice. So I applied to probably switch to a different dental school, to Pennsylvania and to NYU. I was accepted for both, so I took NYU.
Wow.
And in that class, when they switched back to 4 years from 3, the top members of the class, three of us, switched dental schools.
And was it very Jewish? Were there other Jewish students? Quite a few?
Yeah. Class of, in Virginia was class of 40, and 80 were Jewish.
Wow. It's a high percentage. It's a very high percentage.
Yeah.
And at NYU?
NYU has it even more. when I was in Virginia, when I transferred to NYU, it was a higher percentage Jewish. Between Jewish and Italian was most of the school.
And was the curriculum was very difficult to pass?
In the school?
Yeah.
We used a whole different nomenclature. The instrumentation was different. So I had to get a whole new set of hand instruments. They don't use them much today. Chisels.
Yeah, that's sure. Oh, sure. And were you happy with your decision of doing dentistry?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I enjoyed dentistry. I enjoyed a number of things about dentistry. First of all, you don't kill any patients. And number two, you don't have to visit any in the hospital. And there's you can do things that are creative, aesthetically. I always enjoyed dentistry. I specialized.
What was your specialty?
And when I came back from Israel, I studied orthodontics. So I have a graduate degree in orthodontics.
From which university?
Columbia.
Oh. And you were a specialist orthodontist?
Yeah, but I didn't give up my general practice. I had mixed. I didn't want to be tied in with referrals.
Amazing, sure. And Harold, can I ask, what made you decide to volunteer to come in 48 to Israel? Because you volunteered to come here in 1948.
Actually, I finished dental school in 1948, June. Starting in May, there was very little. My prerequisites had been satisfied, so I volunteered for an organization called Materials for Palestine. And when they used to collect stuff, used clothing, handguns, stuff like that. And so the guy who was running it, came to him one day and said, I want to go to Israel. So he said, well, they're not letting men of military age go to Israel. And the U.S. government. So he said, why don't you get Siemens papers and get a job on the boat? So I called up the Siemens. He gave me the number, the Siemens Union. I want to go to Jack Star to Israel. He said, well, you have to be a member of the union. So I said, how much would it cost to become a member of the union? He said, 2 suits. I don't know. I said, what do you mean 2 suits? $50 a suit. I said, I can't afford that, but I can afford one suit. So I gave him $50 and he gave me a certificate that I was a member of the union. And then I got together with a fellow by the name of Lou Goldblatt, who was a dentist from Cleveland, who was very Zionistic, and he was collecting money for a mobile dental unit. So I went over, I signed up with him, and he got on this boat, Jack Star, and we were treated like officers, given not because we were, but because of our ranks, supposedly. And so we came to Israel, and the unit was officially owned by Kupat Cholim.
Well, what month did you come in 48? Do you remember the month that you came, when you came?
The month? Yeah, June.
In June 48. So the war was still going, the war was...
Oh, yeah.
You were in the middle of the war?
Yeah.
The War of Independence?
Yeah.
And was the boat trip, was it very difficult?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here's a picture of the boat. Here's the picture of the unit.
Wow, is that the dental unit?
Yeah.
Wow.
But when we got there, Kupat Cholim didn't know what to do with it, so they deposited it in the parking lot of the Beilinson Hospital. And I didn't come here just to sit around in their politics. And I heard about this unit being taken over by the Army. So I went to the head of the Army, Mashori, it was his name. I said, look, if you give me that unit, I'll join the Army. And he did. He gave me this unit, and I went with this unit all over the country.
This was during the War of Independence?
Yeah, this is me.
How old were you at this time?
23.
And the boat is...
The boat? How old was the boat?
Where is the boat?
I don't know where the boat is now.
Okay, I think here's on the boat. Maybe. On board?
This is on board the Jack Star.
Yeah.
This was on board the Jack Star, the boat that came to Israel. This is when we were stuck in Saad and mud. You know where Saad is, don't you?
It's in the Negev.
Yeah. It's bypass Gaza.
And you can see here inside these were the dental drills.
Yeah, this is my chauffeur. This is the dental assistant that I had. Yeah, and this is the unit with inside the unit.
And who donated the unit?
Who made the?
Who donated?
Ose. Ose is a French Jewish charity. And these are my girlfriends in Israel. It's funny, I was going with this girl, this is a Yemenite nurse. I was going with this girl, and when I left to go back to the States to specialize, I kind of didn't fulfill her aspirations. You know, she wanted me to settle down with her. She's a nice girl, very nice, lovely girl. So a month after I came back to the States, I got a letter. Yeah, Tzvi. I was just proposed to by an Israeli who a little older, but he has a business, and I don't know what to do. So I didn't answer it because I knew what I should do. I should have written a letter to go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do anything, but it bothered me over the 20 or 30 years that I never cut the umbilical cord, as it were. And so I knew something about her history. She was married to a shochet from Australia, and who still lived in Australia, and then she and her brother had come on Aliyah. So So anyway, 20 years, 30 years later, I heard that her husband had died, and of course she was pointed out to me in the shul in what's that shul in? Anyway, so I knew who she was, but I never approached her anyway. But after I heard some time later that her husband had passed away, and I was in Israel, I was looking through all my pictures when we came here, and I saw a bunch of these pictures. So I took the pictures of her and her brother and myself, and I sent them to her in Israel. So I get a call back a month later. Tzvi? Yeah? Anyway, she introduced herself.
Wow.
So I said, I always felt sorry that I didn't respond to your letter, but I was a kid and I didn't know how to word it. So anyway, she laughed, and we had coffee, and we decided to have coffee again. And I called, and there was no answer. I called again, it was a metapellet. And then I heard that she had died.
Wow, but you had met her, you actually had met her before, you made your peace with her.
Yeah, I made up my peace with her.
Wow, see.
And I went to pay a shiva call, but it was up steps, and it was right near the Lear Institute. So I couldn't go up, but I let say my metapellet that I was downstairs and I wanted to pay a condolence call to her. So the son said, I heard about you, and thank you very much for calling.
That's very special. Wow.
It was a very special.
See, that's amazing. And what made you decide to go back to America to specialize?
When you're in the army, you have children in the army. When they retire, when they leave the army, do they immediately go into a career, or do they travel?
They travel, sure. They travel.
It wasn't that the way in the States. In the States, you look. I was a dentist with a license when I was 23.
Wow, that was young.
So I practiced dentistry a long time, and I had a very nice practice. And my oldest daughter went into dentistry. She doesn't practice dentistry because her husband never did, except when I was there. Her husband's a brain surgeon.
And your son Billy's a very, he's possibly one of the very top periodontists in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's very serious about.
Very.
And 2 years ago we went to California. He heard it was a new technique. And so my oldest one is a dentist, and Billy was a dentist. My young one didn't want to. He wanted to be a little different, so he went into medicine. And he lives in Beth Shemesh, and right now he's in Canada. He took his whole family on a tour of the Canadian Rockies. Have you ever been there?
I've been to Canada. Billy, can I just ask, how was it like being a dentist during the war? In the middle of the war, and here you have a mobile clinic.
Yeah.
It must have been, it's unbelievable. Did you mainly see just emergencies, or?
One day I extracted 400 teeth.
In one day?
I didn't do any rehabilitation. Crowns, laminates,
Sure.
you know,
Because there's probably a lot of emergency
a
dentistry.
lot of emergencies. There, and I was practicing, and I was stationed in the Negev, and the Israeli army would tend to attack at night because the Arabs were afraid of the night turn. So when I came back, I get somebody comes over to me from one of the units and said, so-and-so has a gun in his mouth. He wants to shoot himself. So I go over, meet this guy. I never knew him. He's from Bensonhurst. You ever heard of Bensonhurst? Part of Brooklyn. He says his office, his unit insulted him. So anyway, I went there. He says, I traveled 6,000 miles. I went to Cyprus. I came back. I went to join the army. My half track went up on a mine, and they gave me another half track. And my men don't want to go with me because they say I have bad luck. So I placated him, and one day men come to me. I didn't work at night. I worked during the day. They come to me they were out all night, and I had to give them some injections for an extraction. One after another, 6 of them fainted.
After the anesthetized?
Yeah. From the anesthetic. I don't know whether it was my anesthetic. But
they were okay, they recovered?
Yeah, they're fine. And then the next time I had I met a girl from a very Zionistic family, and her brother had come to Israel to join the army. So this guy was was Chile, Dennis from Chile.
From Chile. He also came to volunteer.
Was that also a volunteer? And he came to me and said, they just finished amputating a foot of a guy from the States. So I went to him and he was still under anesthesia, and he wakes up from the anesthetic and he says, I'm still alive, thank God, and he went back to sleep. And her brother lives here, and she married a man from Illinois. I'm trying to think of, he has 2 brothers who are living here. One of them was a dentist in the northern part of New York, the port of Jerusalem. Do you know any American dentists? northern part of Jerusalem. Anyway, he was a brother of one who was who lost a foot.
And this picture was taken, is this in?
I'm sorry, what? That's 48, that's me.
Where was it taken?
Jerusalem.
This is in Jerusalem.
When I came to Jerusalem, I came with a lot of books and supplies and instrumentation and cases of tuna fish that I bought in Canada, and cases of cigarettes that I bought on the boat for next to nothing. And so when I was invited out someplace, I could either bring tuna fish or salami.
Which was very rare. There was food rationing and...
Yeah.
Oh, so you actually saw the creation of the state.
What's that?
You saw the
Yeah.
You lived through Jewish history. It's amazing. And were there other mobile dental units in the army, or were there very few?
No, that was it.
Yours was the only one?
Yeah.
In the whole Israeli army?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And did you travel the whole country, or?
All over. I was in the Galileo, I was in the Tzfat, I was in the West Bank. Where else was I? I was in Beersheba. I was in Sdom. I was in Eilat.
It's Eilat in the very early days of Eilat.
I came to this unit when I was stuck here. I continued my trip with this unit, and when I was going down, they said, "Here, take this load and give it to the hospital, whose blood supply." So they gave it to me, and I get to go there, and it was very, very, let's say, fair, very relaxed. So they said, "Why don't you go say hello to the so I'm South African surgeon was there, and his operating room nurse was from Pittsburgh, and so I went in there, and they showed me what they were doing. It was a guy with very bad gashes on his body, and they were operating on him, sewing him up, and so they wondered how to handle him, because they looked at his book papers, and he was a Sandhurst. You know what Sandhurst is? It's a British one, Royal Point. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
They wanted how to handle it.
And you helped?
I was so tired, I went to sleep.
Wow.
And my brother was downstairs, had a gun, it was stolen. So he said, "Do you have a gun for me?" So I said, "Yeah, I brought a gun for you." Of course, we collected a lot of guns, and we put it into this unit, and nobody searched the units.
Wow.
So I took out this gun for the first time. It was a 45, and they went to the back of the turf that we were in, and they put cans on a fence, and they were shooting, and with revolvers, there's no accuracy. So it was like from here, for the end of the porch.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, I shoot," So I lifted up the gun, and I shot, and God must have been with me, course, I hit the tank. I hit the can, empty can, and they assumed that I was really. But what I learned was you don't need a handgun. You need a Uzi. You're sure of hitting somebody. Yeah.
So how long were you in Israel during the war? Did you stay till the end of the war?
I came in the end of August 1948, and I left the end of December 49. About a year and a half.
And did you get any offers to go to Hadassah?
No.
I think it was the dental school was starting then.
I was a dentist already.
Yeah, but to teach or to lecture there or?
No. It never even occurred to me, frankly. I wasn't interested in being a
And going back to America, your parents must have been very. Did you go back with your brother? Did you go back together, or?
Yeah, not that much. I rented a room in Tel Aviv, 28 Globus, 28 Ben Yehuda. You familiar with Tel Aviv?
Yeah.
Beginning of right near Mograbi.
Oh, okay.
So what we're talking about?
And your brother? Did you spend a lot of time with your brother? When
No. I gave him the gun, and we would bump into each other, but I don't know. I didn't know where he was going, what he was doing.
And when you decided to return to America, did you come back with your brother together?
My brother came back before I did.
Oh, before.
And I spent a month in Europe before I came back. I went to Rome, I went to Switzerland, I went to Paris, I went to London.
Just to see Europe?
Yeah.
And when you applied to specialize in orthodontics at Columbia, that's an Ivy League university, was it difficult to get in?
Yeah.
To be accepted?
Yeah. I had good grades. Anyway, what was I saying? I don't remember.
And I just want to ask you, Harold, at the American universities that you went to, was there a quota system for Jews, or?
No. Maybe there was, but I did not where I was.
And you never felt any discrimination, or?
No. No.
Sure. So how many years did you work as a dentist, as an orthodontist? All in all?
Until I retired. Remember, I opened up my first office in 1950.
Was this in New York?
Yeah. And I stopped practicing, and I took over. I have a number of associates working for me over the years. The one I finally sold it to.
Sending WhatsApp video.
I stopped practicing when I was full-time. The rest, for the balance of my, maybe 1981.
Okay, so it's
A long time, huh?
it's a long show. But you're happy with your decision?
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of developments in dentistry through the years.
Tremendous.
And you always kept up with the new innovations and the new... And when did you make Aliyah? When did you come to Israel?
Well, about 17 years ago when Billy was here, I decided that I didn't want to go just stay with them. So I rented an apartment, a place in Wolfson, and it had 3 bedrooms. It was a nice apartment. And I would come for 2 months in the fall and 2 months in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But then my wife's Alzheimer's got worse,
Right.
so we had to have somebody full-time.
And it's been since. Wow, that's wonderful.
She's with me for 11 years.
11 years. Sure. And you're happy with your decision that you came here?
Yeah. Instead of doing what?
Staying in America? Or
No, I'm happy.
you're happy, yeah?
First of all, I'm happy with what Israel has been doing. Second of all, I just wish I were more mobile.
And did you keep in touch with your friends and colleagues from 48, from Machal, from the volunteers, those who volunteered? People like Smokey Simon, did you keep in touch with? Or
Yeah. Ted Comet. Ted Comet I still correspond with. Look, I'm not 97 and a half.
Kenan Hora, sure, you don't look it. It's amazing. But you know, Harold, I'll mention there were, out of those who volunteered in 48, in the War of Independence, there was a very, very high percentage of South Africans
Yeah.
that volunteered. In fact, I think they have the highest per capita percentage of volunteers.
Right. It was a good spot. Australia too.
Australian too, yeah. And did you meet, when you came here, with any of the Israeli leaders, any of the leadership from the government? Or did you treat any high-profile Israelis when you were in the dental?
No. I lived a very quiet life.
Sure. And looking back, if I had to ask you, what advice do you give to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
Well, interesting. I probably would give them advice to look. Israel's not an easy place. I mean, I go crazy with. I have a young man comes to help me every day for about an hour each day, just to go over some of the shenanigans in computer work and report. You know, it's. Come early enough to enjoy the place.
And having a state of Israel, it's very important.
Oh yeah.
And all the years you kept being religious. You kept.
I think I'm probably less religious now, but it's a different kind of religion.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no special. I believe in secular knowledge in addition to Torah knowledge, and I think I have no sympathy for people who spend their whole life not being productive.
But you must be very proud of the achievements that your children have done here, and
I have. Take a look at the refrigerator.
I saw there's the whole family. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really special. Wow.
I just got a picture today. Chucky, who's took his whole family to the Canadian Rockies.
Wonderful. So Harold, I really want to thank you.
And Billy took his family now. They rented a the villa in north, near Lebanon.
Oh, right in the north.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Harold, I'm so grateful. I met your brother this morning, and this picture of you and your brother, two incredible heroes that decided to volunteer in 1948 you were prepared to give up your life for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people.
Something very interesting happened. You know, my brother went first, and my father had been there in 48, in 20. He said, how do you feel about my going? He said, if I were to ask your mother, she would say no, but if I were you, I would do it. It's pretty gutsy, huh?
It really is.
I mean, we're just two kids.
It's amazing, and you and your brother, and I think you are both unsung heroes, tremendous heroes, and it's been such an honor and a privilege to be with you, and I'm so grateful. And you should just have mazel bracha and may vestrim in good health.
Did you run out of film yet?
Not at all, not at all. No, anything that you say, it's incredible, because you really lived. You saw the destruction, a third of our people being destroyed, and then you saw the rebirth and the rebirth of the state of Israel, and you were part of that history. You actually made it happen.
I don't feel that I made it happen, but I feel like I'm part of history. People who don't participate are missing something.
Sure.
I mean, they can have a Jewish life in the Golan,
Yeah.
but this is a different kind of existence.
And you're very happy that you came here in 48,
Yeah.
that you volunteered.
I am. Thank you.
So I just want to again, I cannot thank you enough, and Harold, really from the bottom of my heart, really thank you very, very much. I'm extremely grateful, and you should just be well and have nachas from your dear
Thank you.
family.
Thanks.
And you are amazing.
And give my brother, my son, your regards.
I will do all the very best.
Okay.
Thank you so much, really. You really are quite unbelievable.